The search was at the home of defendant Williams with drugs and firearms.
I mean, I guess at least as to Mr. Stillwell, I might need to revisit the whole thing about drugs found in his cell.
RICO and street gang changes that calculus.
Because the Harvey rule is in effect.
You're opting out of that one?
I am opting out of Mr. Harvey's argument, and I'm opting out of the Harvey rule.
That would be smart of you for this particular argument.
With all that said, also you have incidents that happened in both Fulton County Jail, as in the attempted murder of Mr. Rayshawn Bennett, as in some of these happened since the case has been in trial. Conspiracy operates quite easily and effectively within both prison and jail.
If you're new, make sure y'all hit that notification bell, that like, share, comment, and subscribe. Grab a seat. We finna dig deep.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Jay. And man, we definitely got to talk about day 117 of this Young Thug Rico Trial. Now, the state's case is actually picking up a little momentum. And believe it or not, it's actually because of the defendants themselves. Now, ironically, the state has evidence showing that these defendants have definitely been talking way too much. Whether it's jail phones, cell phones, or recorded lines, man, the state is laying it all on the line. But ask yourself this, will this evidence actually hurt the case? Or is this just another bigger play from the state? Man, before we dig deep, y'all make sure y'all tap that notification bell so you'll get the drop whenever we drop as well. Hit that subscribe button, and whether you're a fan or an op of the case or the state, man, hit the like button. Hit the like button, get the likes up. Man, y'all know the vibes. If you don't, grab a seat. We definitely finna dig deep.
Giving it to anyone, I was selling drugs. I acknowledge that it actually appears that they're talking about drugs and not selling drugs for the time being. But so that's not really furthering any conspiracy. But to say that just because they put in their indictment in count one an allegation of drug dealing furthering the YSL does not, in my estimation, open the door to any discussions of any individuals on trial selling drugs to pad their own individual pockets. There's nothing that supports the argument that this is some sort of vast conspiracy as alleged in the indictment. So to me, we're just end-arounding how to get in bad character evidence about Mr. Stillwell, about talking about drugs with Mr. Garlington. And so I don't believe it's part of any conspiracy. I don't believe it's in furtherance of any conspiracy. And I don't believe it's relevant, and it is prejudicial. And so 401, 403, and hearsay are my objections.
All right. I don't hear how any of what gets said in this particular conversation can be in furtherance of a conspiracy. So I'm going to exclude this.
Yes, Your Honor. And Judge, just so that I want to give a little bit more context to calls similar to this with the drugs.
Okay. In
this wiretap, where there are, as they've described accurately, about 60,000 pages of calls, there are more calls, or 6,000, there are more calls on this wiretap discussing the sale, the distribution of narcotics than we have time to ever listen to during the course of this trial. So the idea that the calls between YSL members are isolated incidents that should not be deemed in furtherance of a conspiracy is belied by that very real fact that we could show if we sat here and just listened to all of the calls where they're talking about re-upping, selling, running out, who to get it from, where to go get it. So I just wanted to make certain we're not trying to revisit what the court's ruling just was, but I want to make certain.
No, I don't hear anything in this call about where to get it from or re-upping or anything like that. I just hear them going, yeah, man, I'm not selling any. I'm not either. So
yes, Your Honor.
There may be another one that might meet the requirements, but this one doesn't.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Now first, let's definitely talk about how the state's case is actually starting to pick up momentum. Now, the prosecution has definitely been introducing some damning evidence that's definitely hurtful to the defense. But what's really catching everyone's attention is how much of this evidence is actually coming straight from the mouths of the defendants themselves. Phone calls from jail, texts, and conversations have all been captured by the state, and the state is definitely using this with their evidence. But ask yourself this, did the defendants actually say way too much? And is the state's case actually going to be laid off of self-incriminating evidence? Phew, let's dig.
Is there any evidence that they have any reason to believe Mr. Drinks is going to be at this gas station?
Yes, I'll let Mr. Hilton. When you mean that before they get to the gas station? I think seeing him at the gas station is happenstance. When they see him at the gas station,
Okay. So I mean, I'm wondering, maybe there's something more going on here, but if they're just talking about meeting up.
No, Your Honor, I don't believe, we don't have any evidence to show that they knew prior to going to the gas station that he was at the gas station. I think that part was happenstance.
All right. Well, I'll just have to listen to what the content of this call is to see whether this might be. Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all are saying this one's a party opponent. So I'm sorry. Never mind. Scratch what I said.
Nah, did anybody catch up Ms. Love live real quick? Like, Ms. Love lies more as any open prosecutor that I've ever known in the court or ever witnessed or seen. But luckily, Ms. Hilton was right there to clean that up, which let me see that the state is actually starting to cook. But I don't know what they cooking, because I still ain't seen Rico. But they do have some damning evidence. It's dead.
Earlier that morning, on March 14th, had rented a car from Alamo at the airport and then went and got the car tinted. Okay. So we do think they were on a prep, but not that they knew that Mr. Drink was going to be at the airport.
All right. Understood. Thank you.
Now, we all know that anything you say can and will be used against you, but it seems like some of these YSL defendants just didn't take any of the warning seriously. Now, whether they bragging about certain activities or actions or just discussing details in general, as street people do when they just conversating and trying to see what's what, either way it goes, they've all clearly still been talking way too much, and their conversations are actually putting them in the vicinities or either linking them to actual crimes themselves. Will these crucial conversations become key pieces of evidence by the state to get that conviction? Let's dig.
Hello? You know where he's at?
He said Dirty Glove?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, when we get out there, what to tell him?
I'm saying we can get out the edge literally right now.
He just said that.
I'm telling you, I promise you we can get out the edge right now.
We stay right here.
All right, yeah, come on, bro. Tell Sam don't be mad at me, bro. We can bound? We can bound?
He said, Young Thug.
No, I'm on my between our feet before we get out of here right now, Sam.
All right.
All right.
So this is actually, we believe, not even co-conspirator here statements, but this is actually, we believe, evidence of defendant Stillwell's and Garlington's participation in the murder that eventually, the murder of Shamel Drinks. So,
Wait. My client was not on that call. So if the state's just going to say things like that, I need to know what they're talking about.
You're right. He is in the call. He's in the background. So when you hear, I believe the caller, I think maybe DeMarco Boyer saying, tell Shannon don't be mad. Tell Shannon don't be mad. You hear Shannon make a response in the background. So I think him and Garland are in the car together. The other car is calling him saying, don't be mad. We're going to meet you at the gas station. And Mr. Stillwell says something in the background.
All right, let me hear it again.
The state's spreadsheet says Garlington on the phone with Nichols. And now we're saying DeMarco Boyer's talking.
I'm sorry. It's Nichols on the phone and they're using Boyer's phone. Because Nichols and Boyer and Miles Farley are in one car.
And
Shannon and Demekion Garland are in another car.
And how would they determine that that's Mr. Nichols?
Because when you get to the gas station, we see that it's Nichols, Miles Farley, and then we are able to investigate that this is Boyer. Investigative Reed is familiar with these individuals.
So we're saying that is Mr. Nichols on that call?
I don't know. Who are we saying?
Because
we believe it's Mr. Nichols. Now that's using Mr. Boyer's telephone.
There's a lot of we believe, and I have little faith in those assertions. In fact, I know those assertions to be incorrect. So
you said there's a video from the gas station, right? And does the video from the gas station show who's in what car?
We know for sure that we see Mr. Jackson in the two cars around her is an Audi and a Ford Fusion, a white Ford Fusion, a white Audi. We do know that Mr. Jackson gets out of the Audi.
Who's Mr. Stillwell? Mr.
Stillwell, excuse me. And then we know that Mr. Nichols gets out the Ford Fusion and that Ford Fusion is actually his wife's car.
Okay. And do you know, are those the only two people that the video shows getting out or that you can see in any of the cars?
And one other person, Miles Farley, we know that he gets out of the car with Mr. Nichols.
Okay. So he's in the Fusion.
He's in the Fusion. We do not see Mr. Garlington. He does not get out the car at the gas station, nor do we see Mr. Boyer. He does not get out of the car at the gas station.
And you maintain that you can hear Mr. Stillwell at the back, responding in the call?
Yes, Your Honor, in the background, yes. It's faint, but you hear him.
Can I hear it again?
Yes, Your
We
Honor.
stay right here. All right, y'all come on, bro. Tell Shannon don't be mad at me, bro. We can bound? We can bound?
Is that you, man? Y'all bound. Yeah, nah, that's well,
All right. No, I'm on mama 12 feet before we get out of here right now, son.
all right.
All right.
Somebody says something on the back.
Well, what I hear is this. I hear Mr. Garlington speaking to someone and them trying to explain to each other where they are. My understanding from what the state's saying is this conversation occurs before, well, from the context of the call, before either car, or at least the car that Mr. Nichols is in, according to the state's theory, arrives at the gas station, which means this is before Shamal Drinks arrives at the gas station, which means there's nothing, according to the state's theory, nothing immediately criminal afoot. And they're just talking about getting up, and the person alleged to be in the car with Mr. Garlington is Mr. Stillwell. And, I can't really hear what was said in the background, but the context of what was repeated is Mr. Garlington saying, Mr. Stillwell's sick of waiting on you in a friendly way, and hurry up, and then saying, Shannon said, y'all are going to bam, meaning y'all are going to fight when he gets here because you're holding us up, and then them laughing about it. So I don't know what's criminal about any of that, or what's furthering any criminal conspiracy, especially since under the state's theory, Shamal Drinks hasn't even arrived at the gas station.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything furthering any conspiracy here except a conspiracy to meet up at the gas station. So this would not be in under that exception for sure.
And I'd also point out, Judge, that it shows the coordination between the two sets of the called and the calling party, and the coordination. So even if you don't take what they're saying as true, the call itself is evidence of coordinated efforts and communication right leading up to the Shamal Drinks murder.
Okay, but y'all are saying it was entirely just luck or bad luck for Mr. Drinks that they happened to find him here. So while there may have been a plan afoot to, when we see the enemy, we kill them, unless you've got evidence that this was, all right, we're getting together to go send out and start looking so that we can act on our plan, then this cannot come in under co-conspirator. It may come in under something else. But are you making that argument that this should come in under?
That's the opposite of the one I was making. What I was saying is that it has a non-hearsay purpose, and that the non-hearsay purpose was that it shows the coordination and communication between the people that we've alleged committed the murder, even outside of the fact, even if you don't take as true anything that they're saying. So not even trying to take the truth of what they're saying. The fact that they are communicating with one another is one. And then the other was that we were saying it was the statement of a party.
I don't hear anything coming in as a statement by Mr. Stillwell here.
If Your Honor could allow us one more comment on that.
No, I was just going to say, Your Honor, we agree. We don't think it's a co-conspirator thing, but it is evidence of the events leading up to the murder of Shamal. Offering for the truth of the matter asserted that he was getting off the exit at the time that he says he's getting off the exit, but simply, like Ms. Love just said, to show they are the series of events that occur right before the murder. The in communication to meet up at the gas station, you're going to see that they meet up at the gas station, and a call that's coming up next is when DeMarco Boyer calls Demekion Garlington and tells him get on FaceTime. And we believe that is when the plan happens to kill Shamal Drinks.
And they actually had Mr. Burney, the cell phone analysis gentleman, plot this number in question that they're saying belongs to Mr. Boyer. They've plotted that. So they have a call log of who's calling who to show coordination. Okay. And they have the plot of where the phone was at times that it was used and who was calling who. So the coordination, they don't need the content to the phone call to show coordination.
Yeah, but I would believe that the defense will argue, we don't know what they were meeting. We don't know what they're meeting up for, but now the jurors can hear.
We still don't know what they're meeting up for at this point in time.
But it's still just a series of events that lead up to the murder. These two cars and the individuals in these cars have some type of relationship.
If you want to use the little tiny part that's we're getting off the exit right now, fine. But we don't need all of it. I mean, it just...
And who's going to identify the voice? Because it's not Mr. Nichols on that call.
Yeah, and we'll lay the foundation as to the call and where it comes from on the wiretap.
Well, if I'm admitting it as an admission by a party opponent, then it needs to be one of these people on trial right now. So if you can't establish that it's Mr. Nichols, that's problematic.
We will. Well, if I'm offering it to show that they were Not that they were getting off the gas at the gas station. That's the hearsay that we would need to. What we're saying is they were meeting up at. They were on their way to the gas station. Not that we're getting off right now. That would be offering for the truth of the matter asserted, which would be the hearsay.
Which would need an exception.
Which would need an exception. That's not what we're offering.
Okay, but if we have no idea who's on the call, then it's not relevant.
But we do know from the phone number that it's DeMarco Boyer's phone. We know that he's talking to Mickey Young.
You know what? Let's just use what's already in for that. And by let's, I mean, that's probably the wrong word, but it appears that you all have what you need. And considering the other issues surrounding this one, I am going to sustain the various objections. I'm not going to admit this.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yo, stop what you're doing real quick. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's free. Hit the like button. Share the video. Hit the like button. Let's dig.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Judge, the next one that we have is omitted from the yellow sheet that the court is looking at.
Okay.
But it's going to be PDF page 351, March 14, 2022 at 10:50 p.m.
Hello. Where you at? What? Right here, studio. Somebody got killed in Kennedy. I'm trying to see who it was. For real? Yeah. I just seen Shakur post shit like that. Yeah. Huh? Y'all ain't no problem. They call me leave. I'm just trying to see who you want. All right.
Judge, just 1 second. That was not the one that I expected to play.
Hey, what did y'all pull up? Find on video. Hurry up. Find on video.
The timing of this one, y'all can establish this is after Drinks pulls up.
Yes, this is right before the
I think that pretty clearly would come in under co-conspirator exception.
Yeah. That's what you dropped off for a nigga. Wow, the nigga who wrote you. Yeah. That's stupid as fuck. Man, you need to be on the damn air or something. What's on with you? We're right here down here. Yeah, what? Right past trying to see.
Okay, so it's right there at 31 seconds, and the phone records, when he said right here, right and past the scene, their phone records put them at the scene at that time.
Okay, so right here, right and past the scene is...
We don't believe that's what
that's right and past, trying to see at the scene.
Let me hear that.
She keeps saying scene, and no one says scene.
Let me hear it again.
And Judge, I want to make clear, like the court is doing, the court can judge whatever is being said. Whatever it is they're riding past, to see or the scene, their phone records place them at the scene of the Shamel Drinks murder at the time that the call is made.
Your Honor, this is the problem. The state keeps asserting things as fact. He said through the scene, and now I'm just pushing back moderately, and now it's like, well, we don't really know what was said. And Your Honor needs to know what was said to be able to judge it. And if the state doesn't know, they shouldn't be asserting as fact. This person said riding past the scene if they don't know that's what's said. And my belief, and I'm not going to assert it as fact, but what I'm telling the court is after listening to that numerous times on my own and several times in court now, I'm not hearing scene. Okay. And I don't think anyone else is.
I don't know. Let me hear it again.
Yeah, well, right past trying to see. Yeah. Stupid folks. You need to be on the damn air or something. What's on with you? We're right here down here. Yeah, well, right past trying to see. Right past trying to see. I'm going to get off the meal. What time go get full up?
I don't know what he's saying, but they're talking about, I mean, never is saying I need a ride, right?
A little context.
No, not right there, but before then. And they're saying, why don't you ride with the person that you started out with? And they're trying to figure out where each other is, right?
Riding past the scene, trying to see, either way you look at it, that the point at which he is saying that, yes, they are trying to apprise each other's location, and that person right there saying that he is riding past, his phone puts him at the place where Shamel Drinks was murdered at that moment.
I'm hearing, and I think everyone else is hearing over here, riding past around the city. Okay, around the city.
I mean, maybe he is saying around the city. If they've got something that's going to...
I don't believe... Well, they just said...
I mean, it honestly doesn't matter whether he's saying riding around the city or riding past the scene when what they're trying to do is communicate with each other about what's going down between them right after they have allegedly shot and killed somebody.
Well, it's 4 hours after Mr. Drinks was shot. The context of all this meeting up is to go to the studio. That's the part that the state's not playing. they're all going to a music studio. And so I hear who they're saying is Mr. Boyer, fussing at, it seems that someone should have gotten a ride with someone else, and he's fussing with that, and he's asking, where you at now? And he says, riding around the city. There's nothing conspiratorial or anything else about that. But my bigger concern is we just have this situation where, like, if Mr. Garlington really said, I'm riding around past the scene, that would be some damning evidence. So we just shouldn't be throwing that out without knowing that's what's said.
All right. I'm not going to let them hand the jury a transcript of this call that says that, because I don't think, I mean, it's up for debate what it says. I don't think, y'all don't agree. I don't agree. Who knows what it says? But I mean, it could very well be a part of a conspiracy, and they could be meeting up at the studio to figure out what it is that they're going to do next. That's not for me to determine. That is part of their theory. They can present this evidence in support of that theory. Whether the jury buys it or not will be up to the jury. But it is this I'm going to admit.
They have definitely been spilling way more than they should have. Now this right here, if you already the two suspected hitters of the YFN member, Mr. Shondell Drinks, ask yourself this. Why would you have your cell phones? Why would you, both of you having the cell phones, communicating with each other? It's plotted that you guys in the same vicinity. Then the state has it recorded that you guys riding by, whether it's up for debate or not. The man said he riding the city, riding back by this. Either way it go, your cell phone puts you there. You put you there. The conversation damn near puts you there. Let's do.
I'm going to admit this as a statement by a party opponent as to Stillwell, and admit it additionally under the co-conspirator exception.
Next call we're going to go to is 512, which is, again, March 16th, but it's much later in the day. The last call was at 4:33 a.m. This call is at 6:49 p.m.
Bro. Yeah. I ain't talking you have. I got it, bro. I got it. I got a few different flavors. You say you got a few different flavors, right? Flavors. Oh, okay. The same though? Yup. Okay. When I got down, it was too much going on yesterday. Man, it's crazy here, man. 12 head, nigga, like 3-4 hours, man. For real? What? How old are you? Yeah, no, they shut up Big Nick spot I was in, though. We think. Oh, they shut up Big Nick spot, bro? Yeah, man. So we got down, we think they gonna come back. You think they gonna come back? Get through? 12 pulled up. Man, yeah, I'm gonna come through the window. I live in the living room, it's crazy, but nobody get hit. And you know when one big, when y'all don't get hit, bro. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what wrong with these niggas, bro? Man, when they look under down in Kennerville, about 2 nights ago. Boy, that's wild. I don't even think they'll know that, boy. He gonna be. Yeah. Clay had locked up. That's the only thing seen his ass. I ain't even know that. They be like, shit got shot up. I'm saying, yeah. Damn, he gonna be that. I ain't gonna lie, but that nigga gonna be fine. That's crazy, bro. Yeah, man. That's crazy, but your ass be goddamn be smooth, bro. Man, move that, bro. That's too much going on like this shit. Too much going on, bro. Hey, nigga, bro. My head ain't got no drop on these niggas, bro. Man, nigga hand, bro. That's wild, bro. That's wild. I'm on the way to the spot, though. I just got down, never pop out, bro. Pull up on me, bro. All right.
Big Nick spot that they reference is what they refer to the Waters Road address as. And when they're discussing about those other people shot us, and the state's theory is they're talking about the rival gang. And they're, stating that it's crazy that no one got hit because there was a significant amount of shell casings at Waters Road. And then he states, one of their partners died a few nights ago, which the state believes they're talking about Chanel Drinks, because this happens after that. And so the state feels that this conversation discussing all of those things, even if it's kind of thinly veiled, is again keeping abreast of the gangs, the criminal street gangs' activities, and sheds light on how they are viewing what happened at Waters Road from their own mouth and mind.
All right, can I hear it again? And it really would help if y'all would give me your argument first, so I can know what to be listening for.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, before we start, the state said they. Does the state know or who's speaking to Mr. Garlington?
I do not currently know. I'm at this moment. If I do, I will share, but I don't know who Mr. Garlington's speaking with.
I think he just meant like the talkers were talking about a we and a they.
Oh, no, I understand. I wasn't accusing him of anything. I was wondering if they knew, because I don't know, and I think that's relevant.
The state is not going to be, other than this wiretap played before the jury, the state is not going to be making any wild reference about who that, like this specific second clip where they say that is not going to be a huge theme of the state's case. So I don't feel that, a limiting instruction is necessary, but I still will determine, at least within the gang experts and ABD, who they believe and who the state's theory believes they're talking about.
And the reason
somebody can probably tell me the nickname or street name or whatever that Mr. Huey is alleged to go by. How is that pronounced?
in the indictment,
that's what I'm talking about.
Initially, by the predecessor judge, he used qua, and then there was a correction or amendment to that reading, and he referenced quay. So Mr. Huey has been referenced in the indictment and has come out during this trial.
In front of the jury?
In front of the jury. Do you know quay?
Okay.
So that's why it's important for our team to make sure that there's no misleading or confusion under 403 as it relates to who they're talking to in this particular recording.
I mean, it sounded to me from the conversation that they were not talking about anybody that they were a compatriot of, but possibly somebody that might have been the opposition. But yeah, we can circle back on that.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Now, let's be clear. The state has definitely been using a lot of evidence on purpose to actually try to confuse the jury. Hell, I've been confused a few times just sitting up and watching the evidence. When we talk about Lil Quay, Big Quay, Quay Jr., Quay Sr., Quay the Third, Quay the Fifth, Big D, Lil D, Medium D, pause. I mean, it's confusing to the jury. With the duration of this trial, we're almost a year in and we're using acronyms for names to make identifications based off allegations, assumptions, and speculations. Man, this is crazy. But just pay attention to how the state is actually confusing the actual case with the evidence that they have, because it's all compiled and stockpiled evidence. But luckily the defense is still paying attention, even though they kind of on chill today, because the state is cooking. But can the defense recover from this? Can the defendants come up with a story? Ride by the scene, ride in the city. You put yourself there, either way it goes. This is crazy. And everybody was so hell-bent on, man, what it told. He might have, but so did the rest of them. So far I've seen almost all the defendants in the trial actually, they have told in one form, shape, fashion, or another. All of them spilled the beans. But with them talking too much actually caused them to put their own nail in their own coffin, hammered by the state. Let's dig.
This is on March 17th at 4:10 p.m. I might have skipped one, Your Honor. I actually believe the next one's 5:23.
That's what I was about to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Which is at 9, so it's roughly 3 hours after the call we just discussed. Shamel Drinks was murdered near a bridge in a vehicle. And so they're also discussing the funeral of the March 11th murder of Mr. Ford and Mr. McMiller.
Do we know who the other person is?
I have associated with a Mr. Wright, who is a 30 Deep member, according to AP Gang Detectives, with a nickname of WOT.
What's up? I ain't seen you, what?
Man, what the hell did I talk to you? I said, but I ain't talked to that nigga ass. Somebody in jail, man. Oh, yeah,
I didn't talk to Freddie. He ain't much.
Yeah, he called me after the little shit on there, and I called him. Yeah, you should went straight to women.
Oh, yeah, he like, I called the detail on there trying to check up on him, man.
Yeah, man, folks hit. Folks shot the spot, man. So
what spot?
Hit something free.
Last
night, well, you know, when he gonna come back. Man,
yeah.
He like, goddamn, pull up. We'll be on one. Goddamn.
So y'all was in there?
You know, about 6, 7 deep. Jay had them pulled out, man.
Damn, that's some food. I thought they already went over there and shot one upside.
Yeah, but still, man, that's on some everyday shit.
They double back.
Oh, it's like,
yeah.
Ain't nobody went next, right?
Oh, no, I heard it a couple days ago. Somebody, they said they went over there.
Oh,
that one ain't
no.
You said they Jim went over there last night.
Yeah, well, we down, man. I'm like, hey, man, how many even come over here, man?
Yeah, you talking about? Yeah, I ain't even know nothing about this.
Yeah, look, we like, we think, they gonna come back through. Man, we think they gonna come back through so we can hit that motherfucker up, man. 12 pull up. Hey, right? Yeah, I'm like, yo, we hit them folk like, 'cause we got our lights out. Them folk like, we gonna have to come in. We gonna have to come in and goddamn, make sure ain't nobody dead. Man, I hit the back door like, hey, boy, I'm on parole, man. All this shit in here, man.
Hey, you talking about, like, y'all have to come in?
Yeah, no, we just heard them talk to the other house like, yeah, we can go in, make sure ain't nobody. Man, it be them up under the house. Goddamn, man, about 4 of us in the house. They keep saying, man, you don't go out. I'm like, man, I got me fucked up, man.
You took out right?
No, I hit the back door. It was on both sides. And I was just like, I seen them on one side. I was just sitting in the car, in the yard.
Yeah.
I seen them looking at the cars over there, go to the other way. They know they was over there. I was like, hey, come here. I'm like, hey, man, I just heard some gunshot. Yeah,
you
man, I just heard gunshot, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like the wood. I'm dry here. It pouring out like. No, for like, man, you ain't wet at all, man. I'm telling you, man. I was in the woods. I don't know how I ain't wet. I was in the woods. But I ain't no sound. Y'all check that house, man. I went in there, boy.
Yeah, man, I ain't got nothing to do with the house.
They went in there, though. They checked that house. That was good, boy. Yeah, we say.
Oh, they ain't certain. They
make sure.
They just looked around.
Make sure nobody dead.
Yeah, so when nobody know when they went in?
Yeah. They thought, now, goddamn, look, wait. And another name.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, yo.
What they hit the house?
Yeah. I'm finna pop out for coat. So they got a little video shoot.
Oh, they got a video shoot?
Yeah. I ain't really been outside, bro. Bro, you ain't got nobody who been trying to say no pill. But nigga, bro.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a pill tomorrow.
One guy, they told me get 120 tomorrow. Shit, that 1800. I told him give me all on. Then I gotta get some weed. Why ain't make no money in 5 days, bro?
Yeah, nigga gotta make something, yeah.
Well, now there been too much going on.
Too much going on, though. Yeah, nigga gotta see what's going. They took nigga get up on the bridge in the Ville.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I heard. Where the hell you at?
I'm right here in the Ville. I'm right here in the store.
You say you at the store?
Yeah, there's a 2 posts down here at the bottom.
Yeah. Where the hell you been at, man?
But one of the individuals at Waters Road is Quaytez is his first name, last name Arnold. So they may potentially, in reference of who was at Waters Road with them, be referring to that individual just through context. But number two, a key part of this call that the state wanted to introduce was when, in the state's reading of this call, when they laugh about, I heard that someone got flipped, they flipped a car under by the bridge in the Ville. Yeah, and then they kind of laugh in a way that's like an inside joke laughter. And Demikion Garlington is one of the individuals charged with Chanel Drink's murder. And so when they make that comment, that specific comment, to answer the court's question, I believe that them laughing and saying that, I don't know. I guess the truth of the matter of that would be that there was someone whose car was flipped in the Ville. I mean, the state believes they're talking about Chanel Drinks, but it's not saying that he's confessing to that, but it's the fact that they're laughing, saying that I think that the state believes is important in terms of when they make that comment, that reaction, kind of light reference to something that's eerily similar to the murder of Chanel Drinks. And so that specific portion, the state believes has a non-hearsay purpose, which is really their laughter to that statement.
I'm just going to add this before you listen. I just want the court to know that my client, Mr. Stillwell and Mr. Nichols, had been arrested by this time.
All right. Thank you.
And so, Your Honor, in the state's, what the state highlighted in this call, just before we play it, is they say that SHIT just came in, and Unfunk, who is defendant Williams' brother, has already pled out on this indictment, just called and told me to pull up. The state believes that they're talking about some type of contraband drugs when they say that it just came in and told me to pull up. The reason the state, I don't definitively know, it's not like I have a eyes on Garlington and he goes and picks up a bag of drugs, but it's in the context of other wiretap calls where Garlington is primarily selling Percocets. And so that's why the state wanted to highlight this, because it speaks somewhat in code and also references another co-conspirator when he says, the shit just came in, Unfunk just called and told me to pull up, which is like in reference to going to get it from another co-conspirator, at least in the state's theory.
Okay.
Man, what you say? I said, shit that came in. Unfunk that called, told me to pull up that now. He get 9 times.
Any argument on this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Once again, too long on guesses and too short on facts. It's just an assumption. It's the fact-free world of conjecture.
Their argument is a reasonable inference that could be made by a jury from this evidence. That's all that's really required. So how about an evidentiary objection? Any of those?
Relevance, 401.
Relevant to their argument that part of what the enterprise engaged in was illegal drug sales. So overruled.
$11:09. This is on March 21st. The key part of this call, and the state's intending to play 17 seconds to 19 seconds, is the individual says, "I'm trying to get the weed, answer your FaceTime," which again goes to the state's theory of before and after or during criminal activity, they utilize FaceTimes so that what is discussed can't be recorded and phone logs or phone references are not tracked. We're at 14 seconds.
What's it? Yeah. Okay. Calm me down. I'm trying to get weed. What is it? D? Yeah. All right, so I'm calling you. Matter of fact, I'm still FaceTime. I'm right here at the spot. I'm still FaceTime. All right.
Could be. Nonetheless, evidentially speaking, it is admissible under the co-conspirator exception.
Well, and remember now, Mr. Stillwell and Mr. Nichols are incarcerated. So if somebody else is out there trying to do something on their own, it may not be admissible against Mr. Stillwell.
I'm just not buying the concept that just because somebody is in jail, they're no longer a part of an ongoing conspiracy. I mean, in an ideal world, that might be true. But there's, y'all have to, if you want to make that argument or present evidence that it all stops them.
Well, it presumptively stops them upon arrest. I've heard no argument to you or any proffered facts that either one of these gentlemen continued to be involved in the drug conspiracy on the outside after their arrest. The presumption is the arrest stops it.
Well, I mean, I guess at least as to Mr. Stillwell, I might need to revisit the whole thing about drugs found in his cell.
Your Honor, I was just about to say, because the Harvey rule is in effect,
You're opting out of that one?
I am opting out of Mr. Harvey's argument, and I'm opting out of the Harvey rule.
That would be smart of you for this particular argument. So, I mean, he might have something as to Mr. Nichols with regard to this, unless y'all got something that would suggest that it's on, this is something that Mr. Nichols continued to be involved with, because I do think the law is kind of that arrest kind of is a pause on certain things. So,
Your Honor, what we will research for the court is, because this, for example, the call we just played was on March 21st of 2022, certainly both charge counts and overt acts in this indictment in the conspiracy occur after that, as recent, at least in the indictment, as May 9th, 2022, where the search was at the home of defendant Williams with drugs and firearms. With all that said, also you have incidents that happened in both Fulton County Jail and three-way calls from individuals in prison. So it's the state's theory.
Do any of those involve Mr. Nichols?
Well, it's the state's contention that because of the RICO conspiracy they do, because he hasn't avowed himself or disavowed the conspiracy, and this specific conspiracy, as alleged by the state and believes the evidence will come in, shows that this conspiracy operates quite easily and effectively within both prison and jail, as in the attempted murder of Mr. Rayshawn Bennett, as in some of these happened since the case has been in trial. So the state, we will find research on this specific issue, because I am aware of what the court's referencing in terms of if you had a drug conspiracy case and one individual, not a RICO, not a gang count, just two individuals in a drug conspiracy, there's some case law about if one of them went to prison or jail, was confined, you couldn't hold their separate one unless they were somehow communicating. I think the RICO and street gang changes that calculus, but I'll find case law to back that up, Your Honor.
So it's one thing for the state to present evidence from law enforcement or alleged experts that they've introduced in the trial, but it's a whole different ballgame when the jury hears the defendant's own words being used against them. Now, these recorded conversations could leave powerful impressions, making it easy for the jury to connect the dots with the state's narrative between the defendants and criminal activities, as well as the conspiracy that they're trying to introduce with this alleged RICO. So ask yourself this. Have these defendants become their own worst enemy or just enemies of the state? Either way, with Woody coming back to get on the stand and the defendant's own testimony, this could actually be more damaging to the case altogether. But what's even more ironic is that it seems like the state's case is actually being made for them and laid right in front of them by the defendants themselves. Self-incrimination? Phew. But here's the real question. Is the new judge actually starting to favor the state's theory? With the way that things are going with these rulings, some are wondering if the judge is actually becoming more included to side with the prosecution. Now, what's interesting that the judge's recent rulings have definitely allowed more self-incriminating evidence to be admitted in. So is the judge actually being fair? Is this just a bigger play from the state, protecting the state? So is the judge just doing her job? Or is this actually just another shift happening in the courtroom right in front of our face? Now, it's definitely hard to say for sure, but the defense has been feeling the pressure right now. They got to be feeling the pressure. And if the judge definitely continues to allow this type of evidence, this could definitely be a signal and a trend that the defense definitely needs to pay attention and worry about. So in my personal opinion, the state is clearly gaining momentum, and ironically, it's because of the defendant's own words. Will the judge's recent rulings and decisions be what very well tipped the scale in favor of the prosecution? But as always, there's still plenty more twists and turns ahead in this trial, so it's still too early to judge. What do you think about the state? Was replacing the judge just a bigger play from the state? Or does the defense actually still have a chance to turn things around? Man, y'all make sure y'all drop y'all thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button. Hit it again, hit it again, hit it again. And make sure y'all hit that subscribe for more updates on this crazy trial. Until next time, remember, the life you save might be your very own. It's your boy Jay. Gone.